Let's go. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Swiss installment of ClueCon Weekly. This week we have Flavio Goncalves from SipPulse. Thank you for joining us, Flavio. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Real pleasure to be here too.
I was reading through your very interesting resume, and I see you've been everywhere and done everything in your career. So I usually, as we were saying before, I usually go through resumes to figure out how to drive the conversation, etc. But with Flavio's, there's so much that I'm gonna let Flavio let us know something about himself and then steer a conversation, because there's so much going on. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, well, I started too soon. I started with computers in 1984. Developing databases and DBase2, so 40 years in the road, so it's a lot. And even with open source since 2003, it's a long time.
2003. What was around in 2003? Was Asterisk active already?
Yes, 2003 was the start of Asterisk. What caught my attention at that time was the difference in pricing. We were selling E1 cards with 30 lines, usually by $10,000 per port using proprietary gear. And when the Tormenta card arrived, Tormenta card used to cost $1,500 for 4 E1s, right? So
oh yeah, I remember those. There was
totally disruptive, and also the cost of recording ports. I remember $1,000 per port on a recorder, $1,500 for an IVR port at that time. And so when Asterisk arrived, it's huge. It's a no-brainer. We could do a database connected IVR for nothing for an open source. So this was really disruptive at that time. The biggest issue was it's very hard to sell something like this and say, hey, it's very inexpensive and it's much better than what you have today. It's like to tell a person, well, I have this car, is 100 times better than your Mercedes-Benz and it costs nothing. Nobody believes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was incredibly disruptive, those years. And 2006, when FreeSwitch was announced, and then started being really accepted in the industry by around 2007-ish, I would say. Yeah. Maybe when TruePhone started using FreeSwitch. It was there was a real change there. And then there's another change that I think you know very well about. So after we open source let's call them application platforms like Asterisk and FreeSwitch came out, there was a push to get an open source SBC out. And I think you know a lot about OpenSIPS.
Yes.
Was it OpenSIR before? Can you tell me a little bit about the history of that project? Because I'm not really super clear on how that came up to be.
Well, I got involved with OpenSIR in 2007. I had written the Asterisk Configuration Guide book, and an editor from Packet Publishing came to me and said, I'd like you to write a book for us, and say, what do you want to write? I want to write about OpenSIR, because OpenSIR opens some better projects, bigger projects in terms of voice over IP. And then I started working with OpenSIR and writing about OpenSIR. And this became a training in 2008. And it was funny because I was just to release the book, and Bogdan came to me and said, hey, we are splitting the project.
Oh, yeah.
It won't be OpenSIR anymore. So the book was launched with OpenSIR, and I think in the week just after the launch, it was not OpenSIR anymore. So I think they have split.
Why that happened? I don't really know. Why was it split?
I think Bogdan wanted a bit more of freedom to create the product and evolve the product in its own way. And it was really weird. And I don't know all the details, because this was done on Romania and Germany, where Daniel and Bogdan used to work. So I don't know all the details, but more or less it's what I know. They have split
freedom.
Freedom, yeah. But I believe this is Yeah, this is the true actually, because after the split, they had all the freedom to move the project in the way they wanted, and it was nice because it the project quickly delivered a lot of new stuff, a lot of new functionality in the first 2-3 years, and then it evolved very, very well after this. So, yeah, but it's an interesting story.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of interesting stories in the space with the well, there's been a couple bait and switches with Asterisk distributions, etc. Which we won't talk about, but you remember those two. There's right now, after a few years working with, well, many years, I would say, running IP PBX as a source, you are now with SipPulse. Can you tell me a bit about what your company does and what your typical customer is, etc.? It's always interesting to find out what people in the industry are doing.
Oh, that's great. In 2005, I had a service company, and many people in this industry have started with a service company. It's the best way to start because you don't have to invest a lot. The problem with service companies and consulting companies is it's very hard to scale, right? When you're doing consultancy. Then in 2000, I think 2008, 2009, I started to create products to sell the knowledge package in something. So I discovered that software is a really good way to pack a chunk of knowledge, build something, and deliver what we used to develop in 6 months in 1 week, right? So we developed a soft switch, and that in the market was in Brazil was really a problem. It was very expensive at that time, and we had only some companies that from England and from Canada, and we actually took a good chunk of the market, mainly the telcos. So ITSPs are our main focus. More recently, contact centers, but regulated contact centers that need to deliver high availability, their metrics and fees if they don't get in the metrics. So we always go to the, how can I say, high performance stuff. We try to avoid the small projects and deliver in the good project. And it was really good. It's much easier to manage than a service company.
Oh,
because you have recurring revenue. It's really, it was really a good decision at that time. And the other company, the VOffice, it's still working. It's still delivered Cisco projects. I kept as a Cisco, how can I say, a Cisco company. They sell routers, switch, but it still exists. I still have a share of the company. And I'm more like a parallel entrepreneur than a serial entrepreneur.
So there's looking through the various. So you mentioned Brazil. It's an area and a community that's not very often spoken about. I don't know that there's a lot of people doing a lot of interesting open source in the voice area in Brazil. Do you think there is a nice community there? Do you think we should maybe target it more as a way to get more people to use FreeSwitch and Asterisk, all the other stuff? Because I've heard a lot about that.
Yes, I think in Brazil, there was a phenomenon in terms of adoption of open source. I believe 9 in 10 contact centers in Brazil use open source solutions. Oh, wow. We have a company here called Comp that is a vendor of cards and gear for Asterisk. They were very successful on GSM E1 cards. I think open source in Brazil is a phenomenon that it's much bigger than in the US in terms of market share. And there are very good companies, Italo and from Angelux in the north of the country, he's really good. There's a guy here, forgot the name, that produces the opens. It's the name, Douglas, that it's also, they're very good people working in lots of different projects. I would say that the market share for open source telephony in Brazil is close to 89%.
Wow, that much?
That much. I believe in contact center, close to 100%.
Wow, that's
right, in terms of services. Yeah, because the US dollar is so expensive for us that most companies, mainly for those service providers, they had to use open source as a way to survive because they cannot compete using.
You're not buying Metaswitch with the dollar where it is for sure, or whatever large Cisco. They're too expensive.
It's too expensive. Too expensive. The only ones that are actually buying those manufacturers are the multinationals. When they receive an order from outside, and they more or less obligated to use it. But if you're providing service, the difference in the price to provide the service is too high. If you look at some companies that sell cloud PBXs, the price of the license is more or less the price that is being sold in the market, the whole product. So there's no margin to use closed source products. It's interesting. It's a big phenomenon. I believe not only in Brazil, in the whole Latin America. Right? For Ecuador and Argentina, I believe they are on the same page.
That's really super interesting. Again, I have I come from consulting, and my experience resonates very much with yours in saying that consulting is always hard. It's very interesting. You learn a lot from there. And one of my friends that used to work with me now is the large company, and they're hiring a lot of people from Brazil specifically for the voice over IP aspect of their business. That's why I was asking. Like, I think this friend, his name is Ben. I don't think Ben is finding all the people that are in Brazil that know voice over IP, right? So it has to be a lot because they have like 20 people. So and they're all from, by the way, most of them are from the Rio de Janeiro area, which is interesting. I keep saying I want to go visit. I have a technical difficulty here. We should make a standby sign.
Sorry, let me change the camera.
Welcome back.
Let me go to the integrated webcam.
Yeah, we can cut this. No worries.
Okay. Just one thing. Let me stop the video, change the camera. And
of course. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Just to have the same background. To not change the background in the middle of the interview. Okay, we can go ahead. But what I was saying regarding the professionals in Brazil, there were a lot of trainings available with lower cost than what most people have in the rest of the world. So trainings were not very expensive here. I remember I paid for the DCAP, the certification, almost $3,000. People here were paying a lot less to get training. That's why I think we have a lot of people with VoIP background. And I have to say, in our region, for sure, we have universities are teaching Asterisk and FreeSwitch and OpenSIPS. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I do. Yeah. I was thinking, I was looking at a few things that you mentioned earlier. So there's another thing that I'm very curious about. You started 2 new ventures this year, which is not something you really hear very often in this world when it's 2021. So starting one venture, people will do that. But you started 2 ventures in 2021. So I really want to know everything about it, because one is, it's a challenge. 2 might be borderline crazy. So that's
yeah, that's funny. What happened? And actually, I had selected this year to take a sabbatical year, right? And then the pandemic extended more than I was expecting. And what happened? I had a manager for VOffice, another manager that's really good, it's John, that takes care of SipPulse, and I say, okay, I had planned to do nothing this year, but now I can travel, I can do whatever because of the pandemics. So I decided to take my trainings and put it into a VoIP school. So this is the first venture. And the second thing that I wanted to do for a long time was the multi-ISP, multi-tenant cloud PBX, the third generation of the PBX that we started in 2008. And for this project, I had some time to think about, and I started to rewrite many of the things that I had wrote long in the past in 2000. It was amazing because it was really different to work with OpenSIPS 3.2 compared to OpenSIPS 1.11, and very different in terms of I'm working with FreeSwitch as what I call the session and media border controller, because we use a different architecture. We put the media server in the border to be able to provide PBX services anywhere in the world with a good latency, right? So there's an interesting innovation that we send the call with the dial plan embedded in the call. So the server and on the border process the call. They receive the call and all the instructions to process the call. So it's something really interesting, and it's working. It's working quite okay. And then we started to develop the product, but it's very hard because multi-ISP and multi-tenant at the same time is a challenge to develop in terms of the interface. And then I opened the company in US to be global, but I think we still have a long run in terms of finishing the product before we can actually deliver to the market. But it was, as I said, it was really interesting to rewrite things, right? And it's a project with OpenSIPS and FreeSwitch together.
Yeah, that's starting fresh always helps learning and making a look at things in a different light, which leads me into a good question I have for you. So you've been teaching voice over IP for a while now. So
yes.
You have course and materials, you have a lot of things online. There are a lot of people approaching the real-time communication space to learn how to do things because there's more demand, because of COVID too, because, you know, people have been yes. stuck at home, so everybody's trying to learn how to build the next Zoom or the next 5x9 or whatever, the various telephony and RTC things of the world. Where would you start if you were a web developer wanting to get into the telephony space? Because that's where most people come from. I see people come from PHP development, Ruby on Rails development, and they say, hey, I'm going to build a product that has a real-time component. Where do you start?
Well, this is a tough question. But I don't know. I think we should, at this point, if you don't have a legacy, something that you can, like you don't have customers, current customers, you don't have something that you can use from behind, from your legacy. I believe you need to find something really innovative in this area. And this is very difficult because there are many people doing the same thing. And there are many things that are free. It's a difficult market to navigate. But I believe in terms of WhatsApp, in Brazil, I would say WhatsApp, and there are some new payment methods that combined together can create something. I'm seeing a lot of disruption, mainly in the commerce, and not e-commerce, in the normal commerce. Whatever shop I go, there's a vendor with on WhatsApp and say, give me your phone number and I can talk to you, I can sell to you, and we can manage this. And I'm doing right now a small construction, and everything is being negotiated over WhatsApp and being paid by electronic means. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of innovation. There's something interesting. I'm always a doubter, and in my whole career. And then I didn't started to work with Bitcoins. I didn't, how can I say, in the beginning, I didn't bought or even mine Bitcoins right in the beginning because I was a doubter. I didn't took many opportunities because I was a doubter. No, this will not work. This will not work. I think we should find something that nobody believes. Probably something disruptive that many people don't believe. Something that will give you a return, a very high return. And instead, the doubters like me, engineers, like, no, this is not rational. Sometimes we are not good investors.
Yeah, I remember saying when Bitcoin came out, I remember thinking, oh, that's a very good idea. I like the mathematics, I read the white papers, etc. But I never really actually bought or used any. I've been investing in crypto a little bit, not much, for a while now, but it wasn't, it certainly not when it was 1 cent per Bitcoin. It was, and anybody who says they believed in Bitcoin in the first days probably are pretending they did, because they say, because they're rich now and they can say they had a good idea, but it was just luck. So whatever.
Yeah, it's true.
So you have courses online in various websites. Where can people go and watch your materials?
In Udemy and VoipSchool. VoipSchool is voip.school. I have created a separate training to Udemy has a problem. Everything on Udemy is $10, and for some trainings we need to there was not many people to watch, so we need to have a different pricing. We need to have a little more freedom. That's why I have created VoipSchool. Right, and there's a free switch training there.
Oh, cool. And yeah, that's always, I think that's one thing, actually. Do you agree that that kind of platform like Udemy, etc., has been very important even for open source? Like, I think that I see and I get a lot of people writing me messages about, hey, I've been trying to do this after I've done a course. I've been trying to do this after I learned from video, etc. I think that has changed a lot, because back in 2008 or 9, when I was getting started with RTC, the only way you had to learn was read the source code, read the invariably terrible documentation, because the developers don't like writing documentation. So anything you look at, old style Asterisk docs, old style FreeSwitch docs, anything you look at will be terrible. The only way to learn was to go on IRC and get insulted by people for weeks before you started finally getting something to work.
Yeah. Usually, I remember recently we were working with the mode call center. The only way to understand it is to go into the code.
Yeah,
it's not badly documented. It's well documented, but to understand the intrinsics, you really have to go to the source code. And by the way, FreeSwitch is a great project. We have been very successful in the last years using FreeSwitch. And we're doing some things. I'm testing some things with SignalWire too on WeHostVoIP.
Are you? Cool. So, well, let me know if we can help with that. I'm always happy to look at what people are doing, and I'm always happy to take a look and see. So, how are you finding SignalWire so far? Obligatory question. Is it working for you? Are you liking what you see?
It's working. I like the part of messaging working really well. And using it as a termination, because it's very, very easy to set up. I think even for the trainings, it's very easy for people to set up an account and receive real calls and send real calls. And I have tested a little bit on Dialogflow, the connector. And there are many interesting things. And
that's awesome.
I have seen, I think you're going to be very successful on SignalWire. In terms of the APIs and everything, for a person starting something in terms of development, sometimes it's much easier to start in the cloud directly, to start servers and mainly for developers of mobile applications. And when they want just to develop the application, it's much simpler than to set up an infrastructure of servers. I truly believe in a world that 99% will be run from the cloud. And people are trying to simplify. It's in any of our companies, we don't have servers anymore, on-premises servers. Everything is on the cloud. And it was much simpler when the COVID started. We just have turned off our last servers in the company. It was just go home and work. Nothing to change. And I think SignalWire will be very successful.
Well, thank you for the endorsement. Again, if you're doing anything on SignalWire and you need any help, just let me know. I do have one last question for you, which is sort of loaded because I get this very often. Do you think in 2021 people still have to start by learning SIP, or can they get away with just using APIs and SDKs and stuff?
I'm not seeing SIP losing any traction at this point. What I see in terms of trainings, I'm seeing an increase instead of decrease in the amount of people training. And I think people are trying to get things that are, let's say, ready to run. I see more people on FreePBX. I see a lot of people in Fusion PBX or using a cloud platform, and less people using the SDKs like Asterisk or FreeSwitch. So I think they're trying to start from something that it's half done, instead of starting from scratch. But the most popular training is still the SIP training. If you look at SIP as a protocol, it's still the most popular. It has almost 200 people every month. So it's really interesting. Protocols are still in high demand. So I'm not seeing SIP decrease.
Go away.
Yeah, look, the new regulation, Stern Shaken, is 100% based on SIP. To do it on the TDM, you have to do a out of band or things that are funny, but it's 100% SIP. If you look at mobile, it's totally based on SIP. So SIP was never so important as it is now, right? So
yeah, the entire 5G stuff essentially is SIP internally.
Yes. Yeah. So probably SIP will be the most used protocol in the whole world. So I think it's the hottest point at this moment.
So SIP. Guys, it's not too hard to learn SIP. Get started because it's very important.
It's very important. And it's the type of knowledge that I like. I remember I learned SQL in 1989. Yeah. So it's a knowledge that lasts almost 30 years, more than 30 years, SQL. And TCP is a knowledge that lasts for 20 years. SIP, 20 years. This type of knowledge, it's nice to get because it has some longevity, while the technology knowledge like Asterisk or something specific, it has a shorter life. This is something also interesting to think when you're learning something. What will be long? What you have a long life, and what type of knowledge will have a short life? Because there are things that I have learned like IPX, Novell Network, and Microsoft Windows 95. All of this, most of this are gone. I remember once, sorry, I don't want to take so long, but you can cut. I remember long time ago implementing network for SAA, and the guy said, hey, now I have a TCP controller that will work just nice with this SAA, with this IBM stuff. And I said, well, I'll never sell the network for SAA again. So that knowledge that was hard to get was vanished in 1 month, 2 months when something new appeared. So that's this thing. When you're learning, think on the things that you can have a long run. They usually pay off.
Yeah, that's super important. Well, I think we went through a lot here. Like again, there's so much to talk about with you, but we're getting to a close. So I want to thank you very much for joining us today, Flavio Goncalves from SipPulse. We went through history of VoiceOver IP. He let us know what his current company SipPulse is doing. Went through how and why and what you should be studying. Go check out Flavio's materials on Udemy because they're great. And learn SIP because you have to. There's no way around it. Sorry. It's still not something you can not learn. So go learn SIP and build interesting things. Thank you very much, Flavio, for joining us today. And I'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you for all the FreeSwitch guys. I really, really appreciate your job. I really, really appreciate the open source developers that have made all of this market possible.
Oh, well, thanks goes to the FreeSwitch team. Of course, I'm not part of that elite group, but they're doing a lot of stuff.
No,
so I'll make sure
you're part of the project.
I'll make sure they know. Well, thank you very much, and talk to you next week.
Thank you. See you.